Just remember to hit record. So hi everyone, this is Julielyn. I'm one of the co-founders of the Wholesome Dog. Welcome. We're so glad you joined us tonight. We're here if you meant to be here. The class is called when Pickiness is a preference, decoding your dog's unique nutritional code. And we're joined by Michelle Thomas of Magical Mutts. Michelle will introduce herself in a second, but I just want to say the Wholesome Dog is a relatively new-ish resource center. So we offer mostly free resources for pet parents and pet professionals on topics from nutrition to health and wellness to behavior like tonight, and really everything in between. We'll go into what the Wholesome Dog is and all the awesome things we offer that you're encouraged to check out. But if you're not already following us on Instagram and Facebook, please do so because we post a lot more content there. And with that, I want to talk about my good friend, Michelle. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Michelle for several years now. She has been a friend. She has been a mentor. She has been part therapist with my picky dog. You know, I've been struggling myself, even though I'm a certified professional canine nutritionist. I've been studying dog nutrition and dog health for better part of a decade. I still struggle with a very picky dog. And my guess is if you're here tonight, you likely may be as well. So first of all, you should know you're not alone. There are plenty of us out there. But the good thing is that your dog is not just being an asshole to be an asshole. Your dog is actually trying to tell you something. So that's the good news. And if you don't speak dog, I don't either. Come on in, the water's fine. Michelle's going to help us with that tonight. But what I have appreciated is two things. One, I don't remember who said it. Note to Wendy, we need to figure out who said this quote. But you don't get the dog you want, you get the dog you need. My first dog was so easy, right? She was like classic oldest child, perfectionist, just did everything right, never made me work for much. My second dog, my dog that I have now, Ruthie, she makes me work for literally everything. In fact, Michelle and I were just talking within the last hour about like, what does it mean when Ruthie's doing this? Because I don't know what to do, right? So it's okay. But what I have also come to appreciate is like Ruthie is my greatest teacher. And she has taught me so much through her peculiarness that I wouldn't be here. The Wholesome Dog would not be a thing if it weren't for Ruthie. And so a lot of my, oh my God, Michelle, what is wrong with my dog moments have manifested into where we are now. And so I just, have a lot of gratitude and appreciation. One for Ruthie, even though sometimes I want to, string her by the neck, but I also have a tremendous amount of appreciation for Michelle, not just because she's a good friend, but she's incredibly talented at what she does. And so just a couple months ago, Michelle did what every girl, person, whatever dreams of, where she was like, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And she quit a fairly steady, reliable business and did something that she was super passionate about, which is Magical Mutts. So with that, I hope that was a sufficient enough intro. It certainly was long enough, Michelle, but please take it away. Tell us all about you, and then we'll get started.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle from Magical Mutts. Thank you for joining us tonight. I know it's getting into the crazy December season, so appreciate your time being here. This is Nellie and Charlie, who just really want to be a part of this tonight too, I guess. So I'm really grateful for Julielyn and Wendy creating this platform. It's been a great space to connect with pet parents and pet professionals and really just learn about new, interesting subjects and expand our knowledge. So I met Julielyn. She helped me out at my store, Rolling Meadows Natural Pet Market. I had a store in Vermont for 3 years that focused on fresh foods for dogs and cats. And prior to that, I have my bachelor's in science and veterinary technology from Michigan State University. And I worked in clinical practice in veterinary offices for many years. Very early on, when I was in school, I graduated in 2005, I saw really the lack that there was in purely conventional medicine, especially when it came to nutrition. I was required to write on my nutrition test that ingredients don't matter, only the guaranteed analysis. And even though I was young and didn't know much, I knew that I didn't agree with that. And so I started an exploration of more holistic medicine and nutrition. And then I had my own health journey 3 years ago when I had cancer. And I knew for me that it wasn't just about conventional medicine or even holistic medicine, that really the most important thing was like a spiritual aspect of it and energetics. So I got really interested in that in my own journey. And I recently have combined that with helping dogs and cats. And it's been really rewarding because I can help them on a much deeper level. Even if it's something like trying to not have the frustration of your dog being a picky eater, that can really make a huge impact in their life. So I'm sure most of you are here today because you've struggled with that. So I'll help give you some pointers on how we can make life a little easier for you and your pet. So when I was in the store, I would see a lot of people come in kind of frantic, buying a lot of toppers. They would say, you know, my dog really doesn't like their kibble. I would need to buy some goat milk. I need to buy some broth. I need to buy some freeze-dried toppers. And they're spending so much money on toppers and feeling frustrated that they're throwing out bowls of food. And then really, I wanted to teach them how to kind of strip it down and go back to basics instead of frantically just throwing things at the bowl and not knowing where to start. Now, I should give a disclaimer of when to be worried and go to the vet if your dog is being a picky eater. One thing is drinking excessive amounts of water. Sometimes people will be worried if their dog isn't drinking much water, but that can actually be really normal, especially if your dog is fresh fed. I have 3 dogs who are fed fresh food and they barely ever drink water. So I'm actually more concerned if they start drinking a lot of water. So watching for that. If they suddenly have muscle mass loss, that can be a red flag. Really emaciation, bloating, constant vomiting. An occasional vomit or regurg isn't too much worry, but if it becomes a constant thing, you'll want to check in with your vet. And then it can be normal sometimes to have colitis and a little bit of blood in the stool. But when you really would worry is if there's like digested blood in the stool, that's really a red flag, cause for alarm to go to the vet. But if your dog is just picky eating, you can really work on connecting in with your dog and with yourself. You can get a journal. That's a great thing to do. And instead of just being scattered, trying different things, you could start taking notes, ground yourself, connect in with your dog. And kind of listen for what I call pings. So when you're going to feed your dog, instead of just frantically putting a lot of things, maybe find a time for feeding that's calm for the household. Don't do it when you're rushing out the door, getting the kids to school. Find a nice, calm time to do that, even if that means you can only feed your dog once a day. You can, instead of adding a lot of things, go protein by protein. Make note of that. Make note of texture, warmth, if they like moisture on it, time of day, and start making notes on this. And then as you take notes, you can start to see kind of like through lines of things connect, that if you're just frantically trying different things, you might not see these through lines and connections. One other thing to take into account a lot is emotions. So just like us, emotions affect your dog's appetite. So there's a mind-gut connection. And if your dog is stressed or anxious, or even if you've been stressed or anxious, your dog may be picking up and feeding on that and affecting their appetite. So just keeping in mind if your dog seems to have their appetite thrown off by stress.
And I'll just add to that, we know from science, excuse me, that you can walk in the room, or your dog can walk in the room where you are, and it takes your dog 3 seconds to literally be able to smell your emotion. So it's not just that they're empaths. Dogs are one of the most empathic animals on the planet that I know of, but they can literally also smell your emotion. And if you and your dog are very bonded, which most of us are, right? Because let's face it, why else are you spending an hour of your evening that could be probably served doing other things, right? But you're here for your animal. And so if you're very bonded to your dog and you're very stressed, it is almost guaranteed that your dog is going to take on that stress. And in a lot of cases, if you are undergoing chronic stress, right, over time, you're stressed every day, there is a very high likelihood of a physical manifestation of that stress, where your dog is actually going to develop physical symptoms. I have given permission to Michelle to waive all client, if we want to call it that, confidentiality, talking about me and my dog Ruthie, because as I said, this is something that is very personal to me, and I've had to learn a lot about the hard way. And my hope for you is that by joining us tonight, you can avoid a lot of the stress and the pain for you and your animal that I went through before I knew all this. So a little over a year ago, I moved from Vermont to Michigan, moved with Ruthie following a breakup. I joke it was like my country song period of my life. You know, I lost my dog, I lost my home, I lost my man, kind of thing. And I was like the definition of a ball of stress. I was depressed, I was sad, I was angry, I was anxious, I was all the things that are totally normal. And a lot of us experienced, particularly over the last like 4 years with the pandemic. What I didn't think about at the time, because I was so deep in my own grief and stress, was how much it was impacting my dog. Not just moving in general, right? Like a loss of stability is very stressful. And unfortunately, what ended up happening, Ruthie had a sensitive gut to begin with. She's a now 3-year-old Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. But it actually, her gut got so bad, and again, I know what I'm doing when it comes to like dog health and stuff like that, but her symptoms got so bad that I actually had to take her and she had to be hospitalized. Because what I now know is that my stress over time impacted her so deeply that she was having severe GI distress. And I'm not saying that to blame myself. It is what it is, right? Ruthie and I have a very deep connection. But I want you to be able to learn what I wish I would have known then. And so Michelle and I are going to kind of tag team on this tonight. I will share more from the like patient perspective. But I will also say that, there's also that saying that we all get dogs that look like us. Well, hopefully nobody here thinks I look like a Cavalier, although they are very cute. So it might help my chances when I decide to start dating again. But I will tell you, I have Crohn's disease. Thank all the things it's in remission, but how ironic is it, right? I don't look physically anything like my dog, but there's a lot of evidence to say that my dog internally and I probably look quite a bit alike. So also keep that in mind. You may be getting a dog that internally looks like your insides. I don't know. So I'm going to turn it back to Michelle, but we have all sorts of Ruthieisms that Michelle could share from tonight, should she choose. So, with that, Michelle.
Yes, Ruthie is a very special girl, highly sensitive, and a lot of the work that I do with Ruthie is work that I'm doing with Julielyn for herself, which, our dogs can be such, like she said, a reflection of us and our own emotional and physical health. With that being said, it's not healthy either to hold a lot of guilt for that. We can thank them for being our emotional support and being there for us, but I think it fuels it more if we have the guilt over it. So thanking them and then telling them we're okay and they can let it go. Nellie, this girl here, when she first came to me, she came from someone who had honestly like a psychotic break and couldn't keep her any longer. And she was really emotionally shut down. And I had to initially hand feed her for a few weeks. And now she's a complete dumpster of a dog and will eat literally anything. So it just shows how much like emotions and trauma can really, affect them. And this might be like even emotions or trauma that they're carrying previous to when you had them, especially if they were a rescue. So being patient with them, giving them the space and support to feel really comfortable in themselves. And, like when they say like, listen to your gut, like a lot of times, like it's just also reinforcing and strengthening, their emotional gut and their literal gut. So yeah, one thing you'll notice that I'm sitting on the floor tonight, and I think that can actually really help to ground yourself. So maybe just getting down on the floor with your dog while you're feeding them, taking a deep breath and kind of like listening to your intuition and what your dog's telling you, instead of like, quick putting the plate down with all this anxiety. Oh no, they're not going to eat it, putting a lot of pressure on them, maybe putting the plate down. Sorry, I'm not a dog trainer, you can see. Okay. Putting the plate down, really sitting with them, listening to cues, watching physically for things like lip licking. That can be a sign of nausea. So if your dog is lip licking around mealtime or really any time, that can be a sign that they're nauseous. They may, after eating, seem a little bloated or grunting. That's telling you maybe they're not breaking their food down well. So just watching for these physical signs and noting it. And this can give you clues as to some steps you can take and what your dog is asking for. Also, I feel like sometimes we want to put really like our ideals of what we want our dog to eat on them. So for instance, when I had my store, so much raw food. Most of my animals eat raw food, huge raw food advocate. However, raw food is not the diet for every dog. So you can try a gently cooked food if you want to do a fresh food, maybe even warming that raw food up with a little warm water or tea over it. And just knowing that just because we have an ideal of what we think our dog should have, or maybe feel peer pressure, maybe by different groups we're in, that your dog should have, that you can really see what works for your dog. I have actually had some dogs that do better on a, kibble diet with some rehydrators, or maybe that's what works for your budget, and that's okay. So really seeing and playing around with what resonates for your dog. Often when I do biofeedback sessions, which is me tapping in energetically to the dog to get a reading on what's in alignment for them. When I say, oh, this food is not coming up in alignment for your dog, they'll say, oh, my dog like hates that food and always refuses it. So sometimes your dog is really pretty smart in telling you what they need. So maybe if they don't like that particular food, instead of trying to put 5 toppers on top of it to lure them to eat it. Maybe it's about going back to basics and figuring out what they do like and what's resonating for them. So I would recommend just buying a few foods. I mean, the great thing is that most independent pet stores will take back even opened foods. Most companies guarantee their foods, pretty easy return process. So you can feel confident that you can buy a variety of foods, maybe even play a little game, put a little bit of each one out, see what your dog's drawn to, try gently cooking that food, warming it up, and really taking note of it. And maybe you'll notice, oh, like my dog really needs red meat right now. Like maybe they're craving beef and bison. I also think we can get really stuck in the Chinese medicine food energetics of it, of like, oh, my dog can never have a warming meat and, you know, only sticking with cool or something, but play around with it and see what your dog's really telling you that they need.
On that note, I also want to encourage folks to think about the fact that our dogs are actually a lot smarter than we are, particularly when it comes to what they need and what they don't need. So, and that's not just me like exalting the dog. It's a fact. I mean, keep in mind that what's that?
Ruthie has been so in touch with what she needs.
Well, and it's not just Ruthie, but you know, instinct for dogs has been a survival mechanism for tens of thousands of years, right? My Cavalier, my 15-pound Cavalier, may not look like a wolf, but she does share, just as your dogs do, 98% of her DNA with the gray wolf. That is a fact. And if you think about it, the way that wolves have stayed alive when there's so many threats to them, right, in the open land, is that they know instinctively what their bodies need. It's also why when wolves make a kill, the very first thing they eat are the organs. They eat the organs because the organs are very nutrient dense, right? And they know that's what their body needs. So when your dog is refusing a food, that is a very loud and clear message that they are sending you by saying, this does not serve my body. It's not just like their taste is not nearly as refined. They don't have we know this. It's science. Dogs don't have as many taste buds as we do, right? As sophisticated as our taste palette is, their nose is that's the same for like their nose, right? We know this. And so it's not that your dog is like, oh no, no more chicken, please. I've had so much chicken lately. It's not it. It's truly what their body doesn't need. Or if you're trying to give them an herb, you think they need it. And if they're refusing it, they're saying, no, I don't need it. I will just say a trick that Michelle taught me when we worked together was, if you're unsure of where to start with proteins for your dog, I actually don't recommend going and buying a bunch of complete and balanced foods, because it's never just the protein, right? In a lot of complete and balanced foods, it's the protein plus either supplements or produce or whatever. So I, as a nutritional retail advisor, I have this little thing I do called the sniff test. And so I will bring, my friend Donna is here. She also has a Cavalier. And we did this with Kingsley, because Kingsley, she's like, oh, Kingsley's so picky. And I said, okay, bring Kingsley into the store. We found where the single ingredient, key word, single ingredient chews were. And so I would hold up different chews. So like a duck foot, right? Because all it is duck. Or a bison, you know, a piece of bison, or a beef, or a chicken, you know, whatever. And I would hold it up to Kingsley. And if Kingsley, of course he'd sniff, but if he like went to go like take a bite, then that was a yes, Kingsley likes this protein, right? And if he just kind of sniffed it and like turned his head, that was a no. That's a great place to start from, to kind of get a baseline. What proteins is your dog most interested in? And even if it's 2 or 3, then you can build from there and say, okay, I'm looking for a food that is duck based or chicken based or pork based. So that's another pro tip. And Donna was saying, yes, Kingsley being in an unfamiliar place like the store we were in was a great place to get his baseline. Yes. So
I
that's
also
a
see
trick that Michelle taught me. So
through lines of, proteins that will kind of correlate. So usually if your dog energetically is doing well with beef, usually also bison. If they're doing well with lamb, it's usually like a grouping of lamb, goat, venison, similar animals. So you can just kind of get a feel for, are they good with poultry? Are they good with, red meat? Things like that. And like Julielyn said, keeping it really simple and stripped down at the beginning is really helpful. I really love like small batch. They make these blends, or Viva has, I think they're called their pure maybe, that are really just like meat, organ, and bone. And those can be really like basic, simple formulas to play around with. And sometimes I do have people gently cook those because the bone is so finely ground that you can play around with gently cooking it as well. Now, one thing is if your dog is, you feel like you're just trying everything and your dog is really still picky and refusing to eat, that sometimes indicates that in general they are not producing enough digestive enzymes. So that means like no matter what they eat, they may be feeling bloated or nauseous after eating. So one thing you can do is trying digestive enzymes for your dog if you're noticing symptoms like that. There's several on the market. Some of my go-tos are the bark and whiskers enzymes. Those are, I think Dr. Karen Becker helped to create those. You can sprinkle them on the food, stir it in, let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes, and it'll start breaking down the food prior to you serving it. Some next level stronger enzymes are Vitality Science Super Pet enzymes.
I was just about to put those in the link.
Yeah, very concentrated. But sometimes if your dog really, you're struggling with them, they may just need a little extra help in digestion. And usually dogs that are struggling like that also could benefit from the food being gently cooked, because cold food just hitting their stomach can really be trying on their stomach and digestion. So whether it's gently cooked or letting the raw food be warmed. Sometimes I'll just set the tea kettle, put a little warm water, boiling water over it to warm it a bit.
So I've just put links in the chat. The first one is to the Vitality Science Super Pet enzymes. And the other one I put in was for the bark and whiskers. Yes, thank you, Wendy.
Yeah, and then also considering their medical history, that their microbiome may really need some balancing. So if they have a history of antibiotics, if they have a history of having giardia, honestly, I see this a lot when dogs have been treated with metronidazole for giardia, or if they're treated with metronidazole for diarrhea or colitis. This can have kind of like a cyclical effect where the metronidazole initially will help remedy that diarrhea or kill the giardia, but then it creates a cycle because their biome is so off, that you really have to do a lot of gut repair. So just thinking about your animal's history and if really a microbiome reset may be in order.
I'll just also put a plug in if you are struggling with a dog with not just picky eating, but also has a history of digestive issues, so diarrhea, vomiting, just loose stools in general. Really encourage you to test your dog's microbiome. Microbiome is the lining of the gut. It is also where over 70% of their immune system lives. So this is actually a really incredibly vital component of the dog's whole system. Wendy will put a link in for the doggy biome. This is essentially a test that you do to your dog's stool. I know, super exciting, but it's relatively painless. It takes a couple minutes. You pop it in the mail, and then no joke, you will have the most scientific reading of your dog's gut health. And I know that if you sign up for their website, you get like 15% off their first order, but that test is completely worth it. And Donna asked a question if the pet enzymes from Vitality Science were good for counteracting metronidazole. So what I will tell you, Donna, and then I'll let Michelle weigh in, is that metronidazole, or really any antibiotic, does do a number, just like it does on ours, to the gut, especially the microbiome, because it destroys a lot of the helpful bacteria. So if that doggy biome test comes back and it says, yes, we can see that your dog doesn't have enough beneficial bacteria, or it has harmful bacteria, they have a number of supplements they recommend. One of them is actually, this sounds gross, but it's actually, in terms of science, really cool. It is a fecal microbial transplant. It is literally a capsule that you give your dog in their food. It's enterically coated, which means it won't get digested by the stomach acid until it hits their small intestine. And then what it does is it reseeds the good bacteria in the lining of the gut. So they're taking healthy, I know this sounds gross, they're taking healthy poop from a dog, and they're taking the healthy bacteria from that poop, they're putting it in this capsule. And I was like, oh, my dog is never going to take a capsule. Like, just, nope, never. Guess what? Put it in her food. It was like the first thing she gobbled down. I was like, holy crap. She, like, literally, she really, she knows she needs this. And she did a 60-day course of that. And then we retested the microbiome. So pro tip, if you're going to buy one test, buy two tests. It's usually cheaper that way. And the difference in her gut bacteria was incredible. And also, if you're a science nerd, there's so much data that you get from that. And if you're not a science nerd, don't worry, because once you get that test done, you can actually hop on a free call with one of the scientists, and they will essentially translate your dog's results and then answer any questions. So highly recommend.
And just to go back to the question regarding the enzymes and metronidazole, I should note that like the digestive enzymes are going to help your dog in more the first part of digestion. So it's the enzymes are helping to break down the food like as they're in the stomach or hitting the stomach, where the probiotics and what the metronidazole is affecting is going to be more in the small and large intestine. So it's kind of hitting a different, the more preliminary part of digestion. And yeah, when I can talk a little bit about biofeedback. I know I've kind of sprinkled a little in there. I think maybe there's some people who have had sessions with me on the call tonight. But what I'm doing is energetically connecting in with your pet to really get a reading of what is in alignment for them at the moment of our session. So it's really wonderful if you take the time and journal and connect in with your pet, and listen to them and your intuition and their intuition of what they need. The biofeedback is a way of like accelerating that into an hour and a half session. So it's been a really useful tool and cut out a lot of the guessing game. I've done nutritional consults for quite a while before I was utilizing the biofeedback. And like the results of it have been really gratifying, that it takes out a lot of the guesswork because I can logically make a lot of recommendations. But when you tap into the dog's energetics and get feedback of what they really need, that's really such a useful tool. So even when it comes to like microbiome and supplement health. I will test energetically what probiotics are in alignment for them and give a very direct course of, okay, do this one, for so many weeks and then rotate to this one, test if they need enzymes. And then we go through foods and I'll test energetically what foods are in alignment, if you should be cooking it, even down to details of like percentage of vegetables that should be in the diet, which vegetables. Some dogs I do find need a little bit of carbs, like a little bit of millet for a while or sweet potato things. So it really is cutting to like getting what your individual dog's needs are. And often, like when we do these sessions, people will be like, aha, this makes so much sense. Like, this is what I'm seeing.
And I'll just say, this is, if you're familiar with the term woo-woo, a lot of this, this biofeedback work can seem very woo-woo, right? It's kind of the opposite of hard science. And so when Michelle told me she was thinking about doing this, I was like, oh my God, sign me up. I want to know. Michelle always have had a knack for being like, I think your dog would do really well on this. And I just thought like, oh, she really knows what she's talking about. No, it turns out the whole time she's been hiding from me, she has this gift. Anyway, we'll come back to that later. But I will say that when Michelle told me she was doing this, I said, okay, pick me first. Like, let's do this. Like, here's my guinea pig. Her name is Ruthie. Work your magic. I'm also a person, I love science and I love the woo. And I also like adopt a trust but verify policy. Not that I don't trust Michelle, but like I wanted to see if this, translated into the hard science. So Michelle did a very thorough session. We ran through all of the proteins for Ruthie. We ran through the vegetables. We ran through her current supplements. And then I also, being a nutritionist, had her run through Ruthie's essential nutrients and minerals. And I wrote everything down. And then we went to my holistic vet. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with this concept of muscle testing. It's also known as nutritional response testing. But I essentially had my holistic vet, do repeat going through the proteins and the veggies and the supplements through muscle testing, nutritional response testing. And then because I'm this crazy nerd lady, I had him run a bunch of lab work. I have insurance, so thankfully I got reimbursed for most of it, but like legit spent about $500 in lab work. And I will tell you, and she's not paying me, and I'm just doing this because I believe it. Everything that Michelle told me was backed up either by the response testing or by lab work. She said that Ruthie was deficient in magnesium. She said that Ruthie was deficient in vitamin D, which is very common in a lot of dogs because they don't absorb it like we do. And she was deficient in folate. And she recommended I try a couple different supplements, which I did. And the vet was like, wow, all of this is like right on. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I have trust and verified. And I can tell you, it's really helped with Ruthie, but there's a lot of things my vet couldn't tell me, right? So like the vet was like, oh yeah, she's fine with all these proteins except chicken and quail. Well, I already knew that, but Ruthie didn't want beef, right? She didn't want pork. She could have it, she could tolerate it, but she didn't want it. Michelle was able to tell me, like, actually, no, the two proteins that Ruthie really is craving is venison and goat. Also, like, two of the hardest to source, but that's for another time. And she was also able to tell me, like she did, like, Ruthie needs a little more fiber. Add some sweet potato to her diet. And instead of these veggies, try these veggies. As soon as I made, and then she also said, warm her food up, like very gently cook it. When I did that, in fact, you can go to Michelle's Instagram feed. There is a video of Ruthie, me putting down this food in the way that Michelle suggested, preparing it as such. And for the first time, my dog acted like a normal dog in that I put the food down and Ruthie went and ate it. My dog is not usually like that. She I'll put the food down, she sniffs it, she thinks about it, she walks away. Right? There was no like desire to dive in. And that changed. So that was another reason I was like, oh, we are really onto something here. And as Wendy put in the chat, Wendy has 3 dogs, a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old. By the way, they're all labs. When was the last time you've heard of a 15-year-old lab? Right. So that's the first thing. And she is also swears by what Michelle's done and been able to help her with. So Wendy did put Michelle's contact info in there. And at some point I'm gonna let Michelle talk again. But while you're talking, Michelle, I'm gonna show everyone your website just so they have a sense of how to check it out.
Yeah, and a lot of dogs that I work with are dogs who have had really chronic GI issues, and people, some people are already really into the woo, and some people are like, I don't know what to do. I'm at my wit's end, like I'll try anything, and then they're, just so happy when their dog has a solid poop for the first time in forever or stops regurgitating. So yeah, digestion is something that I've been kind of specializing in and really helping a lot of dogs with sensitive digestion. And often when we're healing the gut, then inherently also the picky eating will lessen. And then the other thing is that food intolerances can be lessened once you heal the gut as well.
So Michelle, can you talk, because we're looking here.
Yep.
So for everybody who's not in Vermont, you can't select a house call visit.
No. So yeah, it's mostly done via Zoom. So just like we're feeling each other's energy now, we can connect energetically with people and like pets over Zoom. What I do is actually very similar to applied kinesiology and muscle testing. I do utilize a pendulum like dowsing and connecting in energetically to get yes or no questions. So it's not like I'm just a pet psychic and look at your dog and say they need this. I'm asking very detailed questions and getting feedback from their energetics, utilizing the dowsing to get answers. That's Charlie always clinging to me. And also part of the session, we check for underlying issues. So if you do a full session, it includes checking their microbiome, checking what foods are in alignment, checking for underlying things, like if we need to do any detox. And then also includes emotional clearing. So we check in with emotions, see what type of emotional blocks are related to either their eating or if there's particular behaviors that you want to address as well.
So I'm just going to take a minute and ask if folks that are here, if your dog has like a weird behavior, like basically, what is it that brought you here tonight? If you're comfortable, like please share it in the chat. Is it one particular thing? I know I'll start. Donna had a question earlier on. So Donna's question was, what can I do to help my Cavalier with anxiety in the car? Heavy panting and lip licking. I've tried pharmaceuticals and they only made his symptoms worse. He is willing to get into the car on his own.
Well, the lip licking does indicate that he's nauseous. So this is me also going by my logic, why I like doing energetic testing, because I'll do a test exactly what would be in alignment to help him. But I have had good luck with a combination of chamomile, and actually rosemary is really great for nausea and also nerves. So sometimes it's figuring out what came first. Are they nauseous in the car so they get anxious? Or are they anxious in the car and they get nauseous? Or what came first, and where to really more get to the root. CBD could help as well. And then if we were to do a session, I also help to energetically clear some of the emotions around car rides to help them feel a little more settled around the emotions and anticipation of it. Which I would say maybe the most familiar thing people would be familiar with closest to what I do would be similar to like Reiki, where I am holding energetic space for them to clear like emotional blocks and stuck energy in their emotional and body. So I would say try chamomile and a little bit of rosemary. That's what comes to mind. And giving like 15 minutes prior to, and then also like consider fasting before you go in the car if they're getting car sick.
Yeah, can we talk a little bit about fasting, Michelle? Because I think this is something that a lot
Yes.
of people have lots of feelings about.
So it can be okay for your dog to fast. Some breeds, especially like huskies, tend to self-fast. They are really designed as like endurance athletes to thrive on, minimal calories per pound. And also, it's okay sometimes if your dog skips a meal. And I think the anxiety of forcing your dog to eat can really like make the situation worse. So it's okay sometimes to pick up the food and say, we'll try again tomorrow, if it's within reason. Sometimes you can offer if they want to drink a little broth or raw goat's milk, something like that to keep them hydrated and some nutrition. But you don't need to go into panic mode if they skip a meal. Oh, we can't hear. I say
Be
with
helpful if I
Ruby, we
unmute
found
myself.
out that she really wants to fast once or twice a week. And
Right.
Julielyn was
Right.
like, she won't eat. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, she actually wants to like just let her not eat for like twice a week. It's okay.
So yeah, also consider like if your dog is refusing their food, I would argue that they're just better at maintaining their overall health and weight than at least I am. If I were better about fasting, but we know from lots and lots of scientific research that fasting actually improves your dog's health, it promotes longevity, because the liver is the organ that every time your dog or us swallows anything, your liver has to start working to filter whatever that is. Every time you can give that liver, yours or your dog's, a break, you're actually allowing the liver to cleanse itself and to regenerate. And oftentimes that is the organ that ages us the fastest. We know there's a lot of studies that have shown that fasting a dog once a week for 24 hours, provided they're not pregnant or whelping, or lactating, or they're not diabetic, and they're over a year old, is really, really like healthy for dogs. That means allowing them to have access to clean, fresh water the whole time, but just withholding food. And if your dog is already like not eating, chances are they would welcome the opportunity to fast. That was something that was really hard for me to grasp, that my dog doesn't want to eat. But think about it, and Michelle was the one that had to like turn this light bulb on for me. If your dog's not eating and you're standing over them and you're anxious because your dog's not eating, and your dog can smell your anxiety, what are you doing? You are causing a vicious cycle, right? So you're actually only making your dog sicker. Your dog is fasting for 9 times out of 10 health reasons. And if you're like, why aren't you eating? Why aren't you eating? Why aren't you eating? Right? And they smell your emotions, that's not healthy. Again, had to learn that one the hard way. So also just like, now if your dog's not eating for multiple days, that's a different story. You should likely go to the vet. But if they're skipping a meal a week or something like that, that's okay. Like, respect that dog's autonomy to make that decision for themselves.
I would say also watch though at that time for the lip licking or other signs of nausea just to see if that's related. But a lot of it is, yeah, like you say, cutting that panic cycle, because that's not helping anyone.
Right.
So they sit on the ground with them, make yourself some tea, like just quiet. I had one dog I was telling Julielyn about that she could not figure out why he didn't want to come into the kitchen and eat breakfast. And it was really stressing her out. He just wanted to stay outside. He wanted to eat his meals outside or be hand fed. And through the biofeedback testing, I came up with like, he is not liking a noise. And she said she was staying at her parents' house, and it turns out the refrigerator makes like a really loud, like electrical humming noise. And that was all it was. Like, but if you're so, frantic trying to figure it out, sometimes just like calming yourself, thinking, my dog will eat outside, but not inside. And, trying to look for clues can really be helpful, just to quiet your mind, connect in with your dog, see what they're trying to tell you.
So we have another question. So Allie asks, my adult early senior dachshund is a very nervous, emotionally intuitive girl. She can be extremely picky, but will eat more consistently with very frequent rotation in proteins and meals. I lightly cooked commercial raw. Should I lean into this, or am I overlooking something?
It's honestly hard to fully answer, because I don't want to say that you're, without thorough diagnostics, not missing anything. However, I really do think that rotation can be beneficial for your dog from a health standpoint, and also like it's more interesting for them. So I think if your dog wants rotation, you can lean into that. And also maybe doing some things to help your dog energetically with like emotions. One thing I really love are these Green Hope Farm flower essences. There is animal collection that they have, and then they just have like literally hundreds of others. But they have some for anxiety that can be really beneficial, some for like boosting confidence. They also have some for digestion. And these are very gentle yet powerful. So that's just a really inexpensive first step you can take to help support your dog emotionally, is by utilizing something like this for anxiety.
Melissa, hello, Melissa. Is it normal to see seasonal changes in your dog's pickiness? Or could it be due to some other change in our lifestyle with the seasons?
I think it can be a bit normal to see some seasonal changes in appetite. Sometimes when it's really warm outside, especially some dogs' appetites can go down. But this is where getting a journal and kind of keeping track of that can be helpful, or seeing if they want different proteins seasonally, or their food warmed up in the winter, things like that. But that can be pretty a normal thing.
So I'm just gonna, Michelle, while you're talking, we're gonna continue to take questions, but I'm getting a lot of questions about some of the products you're mentioning, and I'm gonna share my screen only because it's slightly self-promotionary, but more so than not, almost everything product-wise we've talked about tonight, you can find on our resources page on the Wholesome Dog, and I'll put the link in the chat here. So Gibby was asking about the flower essences. So Gibby, those are under herbal and natural supplements right here, the Green Hope Farm flower essences.
Yeah, and they have the animal wellness collection, but you can use any of their essences that call to you on your pets as well. It doesn't need to be out of the animal wellness collection. And you can go to, they have like find a flower essence, and you can go by anxiety. There's even ones for you being a little codependent with your pet, or them being codependent and absorbing your emotions. There's just so many interesting and really beautiful essences that you can see what calls to you for in alignment with your dog.
And speaking of flower essences, Allie asks, should they be diffused or applied to the pet themselves? I can answer this question because I've got some experience. And I will also say, Michelle, originally I found out about these essences because Michelle recommended them for Ruthie. While I was on their website looking to pick some out, I was like reading through them and several spoke to me. I was like, "Ooh, I have that issue," or I feel like that could help me. So I ordered several, and I will say, I use them. I use them with Ruthie. So you certainly can diffuse them. You can also put them, they're very gentle, like Michelle said. So you can put them directly in the dog's mouth. You can like put the dropper in a cupped hand, offer it to your dog. Ruthie will sometimes just drink it straight out of my hand. You can also, if they don't want to drink it, you can put it in your palm, rub your palm together, and then put it on the inside of their ears. You can also put it on the pads of their feet. So when you have your first order, they will send you a sheet that, especially if you order from the animal collection, that will specifically say like how to dose your dog. But the reason I diffused was because Michelle was like, "Oh, Julielyn, you should use, we're having an issue with Ruthie and a fox. We've never seen the fox. The fox is outside the house, but it is waking Ruthie up, which means Ruthie is waking me up in the night because of this fox." And so we got a tincture that's literally designed to, I call it the cowardly lion tincture. It's designed to like give courage. And so Michelle said, you should really, I think she'd do well if you diffused that. So we have been diffusing that. Some I will give her orally though.
Yeah, there might, because our household and ourselves so impact our dog's emotions. Like I have 2 young children, 4 dogs and 3 cats. So my house can be a little chaotic, I can admit. So we diffuse in our house, one called Arbor Garden, that's for peace and calm, and one called Fairy Trumpet, that's for grounding amid chaos. So things like that might just call to the entire house can help everyone and your animals and just shift the energetics.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people have really a lot of success. And I mean, each bottle is like $9 to $11 approximately. And you only need, I put like, 3 to 10 drops in the diffuser. So, yeah, also not sponsored by them or anything. It's just like I found them
No.
powerful, powerful for my own family and for a lot of clients' dogs. That they're
So Zoe had a question. Zoe says, "I'm here today because I have a dog and I moved in with my boyfriend and he has a dog." Boy, this sounds familiar. "Our dogs have gotten into a few little fights and lately they've really been on edge with each other. One more than the other, being very protective. And it makes the other super avoidant. How can I best help support them with whatever is going on energetically?" That is a great question, Zoe. And also, I feel your pain.
Yeah, that can be really tricky. Well, the flower essences can be really wonderful if you find one. I mean, you can look under ones. I think there's one for outburst, or you can specifically look for one for conflict and diffuse it in the home. And I don't want to just sound self-promotional, but what I do is a lot of, working with dogs and getting to more the root of the emotions, and helping to clear some of those energetics. So sometimes it will just come up when I tap into the dog, like, what can we let go of to help soften this relationship? You can help to let go of energetically some of those conflicts. And also, it's probably nerve-wracking for yourself and your boyfriend. So also just a lot of self-care and doing things to help keep yourself grounded, and helping, especially if one dog is more the aggressor, to help really the dog who's feeling threatened to know that you have their back and are helping to create strong boundaries for them so they feel safe in their own home.
I want to share another teaching from Michelle, which is, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I have been told a lot like, "Oh, people are always anthropomorphizing their dogs." So if you're not familiar with that long word, that basically means like putting human emotions or feelings on animals. And we're all guilty of like, "Oh my there's like baby voice to dogs and stuff like that, right? And, one of the things that Michelle's really taught me is like, just spend some time with Ruthie, like hold her, pet her, like literally just tell her it's going to be okay. And I'm like, wait, I just tell my dog it's going to be okay. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, but, we're told not to. And, what she's really helped me see is like, our dogs are so much smarter than we give them credit for. I mean, not only can they sense our emotions, but like, if you've ever seen those TikToks or Instagrams with the dogs that are using like the speech buttons, like dogs are they're so intelligent. Even the silliest looking dog is a lot smarter than we give them credit for. And I find that the more that I like treat Ruthie as an equal, the more she gets me. And I don't know if that sounds silly, but I swear the more I talk to her in terms of just like, Ruthie, I'm fine. Like she's very attuned to my anxiety when I have it. And so just sitting with her and telling her and holding her and it's going to be okay. Like, oh no, my God, it's not, not like that, but just like Ruthie, I'm okay. Like this has been a hard day, but like, I'm okay. We're going to get through this. That works. And so I would also just encourage you to like, just think about how you're talking and interacting with your dog differently. And honestly, like, I don't know if this sounds silly, but give them the respect they deserve. I mean, yes, you house them, you feed them, you keep them warm, you're here because you care about them, but like see them more as an equal instead of like just a pet, right? Or just a dog. I tell people all the time, I love my dog more than I love some of my own blood family members, right? Like I just do. If there's a short list for Thanksgiving, Ruthie's always on it and some of my family members aren't, right? That's just the reality. And I'm guessing you probably feel similarly. So if you love your dog that much, treat them the way you love them, because they're really a lot smarter than I think a lot of us give them credit for.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And I guess to say maybe you came on a call for some just miraculous thing to help your picky eater, and I just want to tell you to sit on the floor with them, find a quiet time, do something that's going to soothe you, get out your journal and connect in with your pet and see, I think we all have a lot of intuition and gift of animal communication. And a lot of times the stress and day-to-day chaos can really cloud that. But if you make feeding time really more of like a ritual and a positive space instead of a anxiety ridden rushing out the door thing, or you're just coming to it with anticipation of, oh no, what if they don't eat this? And just going back to basics, slowing down, trying one thing at a time, noticing signs your pet's giving them, that you can really learn a lot from them.
All right, so I don't see any more questions, but Michelle, I think the one burning question that a lot of people here do have is if they're interested in connecting with you and booking a session, how do they go about that?
So you can book directly on my website, which is magical dash.
I'm gonna pull it up right now
What's
for
my
you.
website?
I'm gonna pull it up for you, and I'm gonna put the link in the chat. But it's magical hyphen mutts. Um,
And
and
you can
go
find
ahead.
me on Instagram, and I have a link in my bio on Instagram. I also have a testimonial page where some testimonials of dogs that I've worked with. I also work with cats, and some testimonials on Instagram. Feel free to reach out with any questions at all. You can just send me a DM on Instagram or shoot me an email, and I'm happy to chat about your pet and see any questions I can answer.
I will also say once you book a session with Michelle, you do get that initial hour and a half, long session, but you can always go back. and do like a follow-up session, whether it's just about emotions or if something's coming up. It's also been, I found it really helpful to, if you're starting a new supplement or you're dealing with like a specific issue, to go back in, a month or 3 months and kind of have Michelle recheck.
Something
If
called
you
like a tune-up.
A
So
tune
once
up.
the relationship,
Yes.
if you just have something come up, you can
Yep. So
continue with
there's the tune up right there. Um, and let's put it this way, I'm not making any money. I'm not even getting a free session out of this because I don't want Michelle to give me a free session. We work together, and I believe, women especially need to support each other. But I just know I wanted to do the session, and Wendy too, because it has made such a difference for my dog, in particular, and also seeing what it's done for Wendy's dogs. Wendy, do you want to share just really briefly how it's helped your dogs?
I've had all three of my dogs work with Michelle. I have utilized her in dealing with a lot of the stresses that my dogs have had over the past year. I have had an illness over the past year and didn't really realize how much it impacted my dogs overall. Um, she was able to work with them and kind of lessen the stress. She taught me what to say, how to say it, to let them know that I was okay, that everything around them was going to be okay. That's not to say they're completely fixed, but we're definitely moving in the right direction. I do have to make sure that they know every single day that everything is going to go according to plan. And right now, our schedules are pretty structured because we are trying to reestablish kind of a trust on both sides of things, because for a while I wasn't able to do the things that I am now. My oldest dog, Harry, was my son's service dog. And so even though he is 15 and transitioning to just being a regular dog, my son is still in my home. And so he constantly feels like he has to work with him, even though he's exhausted. We all are. Um, and trying to get him to readjust to working with my son in a different capacity, and allowing my son to have the ability to move on and apply for another dog. Um, we've adjusted all of their food habits, I would say, Michelle, a little bit. We've kind of restructured a lot of the proteins that they've eaten, and had a better handle on some of the supplementing that we've done. We've done a little bit of adjusting of different digestive enzymes and things like that. I will say that the information that Michelle's giving you as far as keeping a journal is really integral, because I write down, the first time I did it with Harry, and I just kind of let Michelle do Michelle's thing so that I could get an idea of what Michelle wanted me to do to help her. But now I keep a journal of all the things that they eat, the supplements. I kind of watch their energetics. I'm a little nerdy about stuff like that, so I can kind of get a feeling for what it is that they are clicking into, whether they're eating hot or cold, different things like that. The more information you can provide her, the more information you get out of it. And it's been really interesting to watch my dogs change as a result. And I have a female lab, and she's not changing at all. Because she told
Are you
Michelle she's not
stubborn? You're
ready
like,
to
do you want to let
change.
go of this? No.
That's right. She just came right out and said, nope, not doing it. So, yep, we're working through all of that. So it's been great. And I can't thank her enough because it's changed our relationships again. They were taking care of me, and now I'm taking care of them. So it's great. And I can't thank her enough.
Thanks, Wendy.
So everybody loves Michelle, basically, is what we're saying. And she's really good for your animals. So all right. So just a couple of last things before I let you go. If this is your first interaction with us, we would love for it not to be the last. This is our website. We have a ton of resources. I showed you our resources page. Somehow you found out about us either through us or a friend or Michelle. We do have a bunch of classes. We have 2 more coming up. We have one on Thursday all about chiropractic and acupuncture, if it's something you're interested in. We have an international best-selling holistic and integrative vet, Dr. Odette Sutter. She speaks more languages than I think I knew existed. Hopefully she'll only be speaking in one, otherwise I won't understand her on Thursday night, but she's fantastic. And then in early January, Wendy, I'm the face and the loudmouth of the two of us. Wendy is very much behind the scenes, and she has been like booking up a storm. I think when we talked today, she said she's got speakers like lined up through the end of February right now. So we'll be putting those on the website. We'll be doing courses. There's this one in January about how to pick a quality pet supplement, but we're also going to be doing stuff on metabolic diseases. We'll be doing things about bone broth and why it's so beneficial. So a lot of our programming is free. We will be starting up the next cohort. If you've read the Forever Dog book, but you want to take it to like a next level and nerd out, we are just ending this week. Our current cohort will begin the next cohort probably in February. We'd love to have you join us. That's an 8-week discussion group. You get over $100 worth of free food and supplements, and you get to spend 90 minutes a week nerding out about all things dog health. I love it. This is the 4th time we've done it. People keep asking me to do it again. And also, if you haven't heard, the next iteration of the Forever Dog book is coming out in May. We're super excited about that. And we hopefully will have something cooking up with the authors by then, because we told them we're doing this and they're really excited about it. So fingers crossed, we'll be able to talk more about that soon. But like I said, we do have this whole thing of resources. And so, Wendy and I have played a variety of roles in the dog health space. And so, we created the Wholesome Dog because we were tired of being frustrated at not finding answers and resources and solutions ourselves for our own dogs. And we're like, we never want anybody to have to deal with this again. So we came up with the Wholesome Dog. It is truly a passion project. We make $0 from this. In fact, you could say we lose money, but that's okay because we love what we do. So we say that if it's not good enough for our dogs, it's not good enough for your dogs. So all of this is Ruthie, Harry, Fizz, and Sally approved. So there's treats and chews, there's herbal and natural supplements, there's, if you want to know who to follow, courses and events. And then if you want to read more about this, we have book recommendations. We'll also be attending at least 2 conferences next year. We'll be talking about those. So because you signed up for this class, you'll be part of our email list. We won't spam you. We'll send a couple emails at most a month. But if you do follow us on Facebook and Instagram, we'll put a lot more out there. And so we try to be very approachable. Our approach is meet people where they are. We don't pass judgment. We can tell you what we think and what we believe based on the research and the information that we've learned over the years. But just as Michelle said earlier, like, we don't judge. If you have 5 dogs and they're all big, I don't know how you afford to feed 100% raw, right? It's just like, it's not tenable for a lot of people. And so that's why I really appreciated that Michelle talks about fresh food and not like raw food, because it's got to work for you. It's got to work for your dog. It's got to work for your lifestyle and your budget. And sometimes like #squad goals are just that, but that's not always reality. And nobody should drive themselves batty trying to do what they think everybody else should do. So that's just a little bit about who we are. If this sounds like your jam, come on in, the water's fine. We want you to join us, and we're excited to see where this grows. So thank you for spending a big part of your evening with us. We really appreciate it. We know your time is valuable, so it means a lot to us. And you can reach out through our email, our website, whatever. And hopefully we'll see you at another session soon. And a huge thanks to Michelle for taking a big chunk out of her time to join us. And Michelle, based on the chat, everybody loves you. So good job.
Thanks everyone for coming. Really appreciate it.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank
Questions,
you.
'cause I know it's a little mysterious what I do. You can reach out.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.